As you probably just saw flash up on Zoom, we are recording this webinar. My name is Luke Anderson. I'm the Senior Director for Prevention Supports and Services at Placer County Office of Education. I'm part of the California PBIS Coalition leadership team and a lucky member of the Recognition Committee. I'm joined here by my colleagues on the committee, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. So Teresa, I'm going to start with you if you don't mind unmuting and introducing yourself.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Teresa Stevens. I am a PBIS coordinator here at Riverside County Office of Ed. Welcome.
And Ginny, would you mind going next?
Hi, everybody. Ginny Joseph, coordinator for PBIS and mental health at Orange County Department of Ed.
And Rath.
Good afternoon, all. Rafael Rodriguez. I'm program manager for PBIS here in Placer County.
We are also joined here today by Kelsey Bonnet. I will not make her introduce herself because she prefers to work behind the scenes, but I will ask Jess Simpson to introduce herself and start us off. So Jess, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Luke, and welcome everyone. My name is Jessica Simpson. I go by Jess. I am the Positive Behavior Intervention Support Specialist over here at the Santa Clara County Office of Education. I'm going to be starting us off as we talk about PBIS recognition and a few other exciting things we have going on here in the great state of California. You'll see that we have some resources here. Those links and hyperlinks will be available for you and your reference after the webinar sometime today at the California PBIS website. You'll notice that today is a webinar, so your cameras are turned off. You are muted, so your microphone is muted, but feel free to use the question and answer section. Just click the little link and someone is monitoring it for us. So we'll be recording this as well, and the slides will be accessible to you as with the recording tomorrow. This is just a quick reminder of our continuing exploration, implementation, and work with our PBIS Culturally Responsive Field Guide, released just last year. There's a direct link to the recording and outlining. This research is strongly recommended for our trainers and coaches. We are really excited to provide you with these resources and support in your ongoing work in creating culturally responsive systems. A quick overview of today's agenda. We're going to provide an overview of the California group of PBIS regional leads and supports. For those of you not familiar, we're going to give you an introduction and some data to ground us in our rationale and the why of the recognition system. For those of you who might be applying for recognition, and we hope all of you are, we're going to go over a timeline. We're going to talk about Acers, which is a requirement for recognition, and then we're going to go step by step through the various levels for recognition and wrap up on resources and lead contacts in your region. Before we get started with all of that, we've got a pretty exciting announcement, hence the drum roll. All right, I'm ready to announce it. The California CPC, the California PBIS Coalition, is now known as simply California PBIS. Look at that. We got all new branding and a cute little logo and everything. So that's exciting. Okay, so speaking of branding and logos, we always appreciate your support in promoting PBIS. If you're anything like me and sadly addicted to social media, you know that a simple hashtag can go viral and promote your message further than you could ever imagine. It's an awesome way to keep connected, promote the positive work that you are doing, and just spread positivity in general and share ideas. So we encourage you to make use of our handles and hashtags, hashtag PBISCA. We love to see you in the work that you're doing, and we love to repost you. So here's a little background about California PBIS, not CPC, California PBIS. Who we are and what we do to support educators and leaders like yourself in this very important work of building and sustaining positive cultural and climate for educators, staff, students, families, communities. We were founded in 2012, and since that time have been dedicated to providing quality standard of practice through regional technical assistance centers across the state. These centers are primarily located at county's offices of education and a few SEPAs. We emphasize the implementation of PBIS systematically and anchor those practices in implementation science and database decision-making. We're proud to offer districts and schools opportunities to engage with broader professional learning communities and systems of support by providing training, technical assistance, capacity building to coaches and districts, as well as our recognition system. And our always engaging annual conference. As you can see, we live in a very large and populous state. I'm from Southern California. I live in Northern California, and I'm learning firsthand just how varied and large this beautiful state is. You can see here, PBIS is organized into regional TACs, technical assistance centers, to support nearly 60 counties and 1,000 districts. With our end goal and everyone's focus being the positive impact we have on the lives of over 6 million students in 10,000 schools statewide. Speaking of our Technical Assistance Center, this is our recognition team. This is a subcommittee of the California PBIS leadership team. I'm down there at the bottom, and the second one from the left. That's Jessica Simpson, almost famous. This is your hardworking team that dedicates their time to help develop the recognition system, the guidelines, the criteria. We fill the applications, review them, and get back to you with your recognition status. So I want to give a huge shout out to my colleagues for their support in this process. Thanks, guys. Here's a little bit of data from the 2021-2022 school year. We had nearly 1,370 schools awarded recognition. That's a shining highlight. That means that 1 in every 10 schools receiving recognition came from the state of California. Our colleagues have achieved great and exciting achievements and accomplishments, and we're here to celebrate you and continue that tradition. Here's a little more data. Here's some information about implementation statewide, starting with the establishment of the California PBIS, formerly known as the California PBIS Coalition, in 2012. Other significance are the passing of Assembly Bill 114, also in 2012, followed by the School Climate Transformation Grant, the publishing of the California Dashboard. You will see a little dip in 2019 due to COVID, but we still had many schools applying for recognition and had about 300 new schools begin their PBIS journey. The extent to which we are implementing PBIS is in the way in which it was designed to be implemented is paramount to our work and positive outcomes for school, climate, and culture, and ultimately the schools we support and the students we serve. With over 70% of schools implementing at Tier 1 as well as Tier 2, that's pretty impressive data, and it's your school's data. You guys are doing the hard work, and it shows. Now, Teresa is going to explain a little bit about our why behind the recognition process.
Thanks, Jess. So we just wanted to take a moment and think about why should we apply for this recognition? Why even have this? So we know it takes a village to implement PBIS successfully with fidelity. So this is just a great opportunity to be able to highlight those impactful outcomes that your PBIS implementation brings to your school climate and culture. It's also a great opportunity for schools and for districts to be able to reflect and celebrate on their progress for implementing and sustaining school-wide PBIS. And that last there is that it helps us in identifying those exemplar schools throughout the state. It helps us create some of those graph and trends and demographic patterns as well. So then you may be wondering what happens after we submit our application. How do we know? What do we need? What do we get for it? How will we get notified? So first you will receive a congratulations email and an electric decal, just like the ones that you see down here. And they are new with our new logos for California PBIS. And we hope that you celebrate and share all of these acknowledgements with your school, your families, your community. We've seen schools add it to their websites. They create some signage around this great recognition. They may even put it on social media platforms. So whatever it is that you guys do in making sure you highlight the great work of PBIS, it gives you the opportunity to do that with these decals. It's also a great opportunity to really think about how you're starting off your year with the celebration, and all of the great work that your teams and your families and parents and your school teams did in implementing PBIS. So we will add all of the schools that get recognized to the California PBIS website, where we also have recognitions from past years. And then we're also going to highlight these accomplishments during our October Sacramento, California PBIS conference. And as a recipient, we hope is that for you and your teams to share your implementation journey and your materials, resources that you have created that can really help other PBIS schools and districts as they're maybe starting their implementation of PBIS. We know that teams put a lot of time in submitting their applications and going through and calibrating the things that are going well and how they can improve. So we've also seen digital documents being created through all of these processes. And so we hope you are willing to share those tools and resources should others in your district or your county ask for support. And we always encourage you to participate and present in any of the conferences in our community at PBIS, where you can share your story and the great outcomes that come from your implementation. So here are some important dates to take note of. This is our timeline for the year, and the window of application will be after this today, so it probably will start tomorrow on the website. Those who were not able to make it to the live webinar that we have right now, this is recorded. So if you had to leave a little bit early today, just know this is being recorded and will be available tomorrow on the website. The application window is a little bit over 3 months. It's going to close May 12th. So also, just as a reminder that we do not accept any late applications. So we would highly recommend you add the date to your calendar. And we also hope that you can join us on October 11th through 13th for the annual California PBIS conference in Sacramento. So now on to Acers. So those of you who completed the requirements to become an Acer, which is an authorized California PBIS external reviewer. If you did that from 2020 to now, you are still certified to support those schools this year. We've seen county office representatives be Acers for schools that they support. We encourage those individuals to have somebody in a district to be an Acer. And you will also find a list of Acer identified by their county and school district. So if you wish to become an Acer, please go ahead and go to the California PBIS website. Under that tab of state recognition, you'll see the Acer option like the picture below. There are other resources also if you are an Acer that really may help you in conducting your walkthroughs, either in person or virtually. So now you are ready to get started with the application, and just here are some 3 of those expectations that is synonymous with PBIS practice that we have grown to definitely appreciate it and love with PBIS. So be responsible in using those accurate data when answering the different areas in the application. We've really provided a lot of different examples through the criteria document and also some of the worksheets that you can utilize before applying live onto the form. And be respectful and have this awareness that we are actually all volunteers in this committee, but we want to be able to support you during this process, and that we hope that our positive interactions with you is also reciprocated. And last but not least, be awesome. We know that this work takes a lot of time and effort. We want your hard work to be recognized and celebrated also as we continue our efforts in building our PBIS community with you. So let's get to the meat of this webinar. So as you prepare your online application, here are a few things that you can do. So you can log into pbisca.org and familiarize yourself. There's a lot of different resources and tiles that you can go to. If you have never applied before, you will then need to identify your Acer, the individual who's going to be there to help you complete your TFI. And as shared earlier, there's a list of Acers that you may be able to connect with in your area to help with this piece. So It's also important to prepare your school for the walkthrough process by identifying data points for the TFI and that classroom component of recognition criteria. And this is probably better to do prior to when you're having your Acer come to do your official walkthrough. So now I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Raf as he talks about the recognition criteria.
Thank you very much, Teresa. All right, let us move on to criteria 1. So as always, criteria 1, which is in previous years, we are using the tiered fidelity inventory, the TFI. And to piggyback on what Teresa said, we were talking about, it must be completed by an Acer, an authorized external reviewer, going to ensure that that person make sure that they are authorized first, that they've completed the testing, the questions, and then go ahead and take your TFI. So let's take a look at criteria for bronze and silver. So for bronze, your tier 1 TFI score should be 40% or higher. And then moving over to silver, same TFI tier 1 should be a score of 70% or higher. And again, making sure that the reviewer is taking that assessment before you begin administering the TFI. Moving on to gold, you'll have a tier 1 TFI score of 70% or higher, and either tier 2 or tier 3 TFI score of 70% or higher. So you can see 70. So tier 1, and then either option of tier 2 or tier 3. Then for platinum, lucky folks, you must have a TFI score of 70% or higher in tiers 1, 2, and 3. So all 3 tiers, 70% or higher. Quick note here, well, we want to keep reminding this is key, because one of the easiest errors that you can have on your score when you submit it is, or your application when you submit it, is that the Acer did not complete their assessment in time. So we want to make sure that if you completed your Acer since 2020, you're fine. If you have not, I highly suggest today start doing it before you administer your TFI. You don't want the TFI doesn't come before becoming an Acer. Get that cart before the horse. Can't do that. All right, moving on. Criteria 2, providing current data for your major ODR percentages. This also has some crucial areas where there might be some easy quick fix errors. Bronze and silver, like the intention for this is really just to reflect and data collect. So for bronze and silver, all we're doing is collecting that data, and hint, we can use that in our TFI action plan. What steps can we move forward? Create your own drill down tool just for yourselves. All we would like is to provide the percentage of student population who received either 0 or 1 major ODRs. I'll pause here. 0 have not received a major ODR. This is where we come across some questions and concerns. 1 or less. I know, I feel like I want to rewrite the way it's listed, but 0 to 1 major ODRs. List the percentage of students who've received 2 to 5 major ODRs, and then 6 or more major ODRs. Remember, percentage of student population, not the number of students, percentage. That's key. Moving on to gold and platinum. The same rationale behind bronze and silver, except with a little caveat. If you notice, the percentage for students who've received 0 to 1 major ODRs must be 80% or more. So 80% or more of your student population should have received 0 or 1 ODR. The next slide here, you can see that this is just a sample data. Like the percentages must add up to 100. We'll have a drill down tool where you can pull the numbers to make sure that they add up to 100%. As you can see here in the example, between 0 and 1, this example school has 82%. number of students or number of percentage of students who receive 2 to 5, 15%, 6 or more, 3 equals 100%. There we go. Student percentage. If you are using Swiss, whether you're using Swiss or not, I should say, we have a couple videos of hyperlink that will be in this slide deck that can walk you through the steps to find that information so that you can demonstrate it appropriately on your application. Fairly straightforward. Moving on to criteria 3. Now, this is an expanded component from last year. So this equity and mental health component is going to expand on some documents that we asked you to take a look at and explore in previous years. And now there's a little more deeper exploration. We'll get into that here in just a second. If you take a look, I know, like, oh, you feel inundated, too many words, too many pictures. I'll tone it down for you. So the intention for this is for the schools and district teams to explore that ISF framework, that interconnected systems framework document, those 3 fact sheets, and your PBIS equity resources. So I'll take this slowly. First, as you did last year, if you didn't do it last year, it's new for you. There are 3 fact sheets, which will be hyperlinked in this Google Doc here, the Google. So fact sheet ISF 101, 201, and 301. Download those, read them, discuss them as your team. And this is the new point here, at least one of these 3 documents, the 5-point approach to enhancing equity, enhancing family school collaboration with diverse families, or, which you probably are already doing, that PBIS cultural responsiveness field guide. That's already key, so hint, hint, but that's a good one to start with if you don't have any of the other 2 or the other 3. Now, moving on, gold and platinum. In addition to all those other documents and words that we just read here, you also have to explore the integrated TFI companion guide. That's crucial. It's going to be key. It's going to help you with criteria 4 when we get there. So you'll be identifying one tier 1 TFI item that your team is going to prioritize, and then to create either mental health and or an equity-based concept with your PBIS implementation. We'll take a look at that in criteria 4. So it's just an earmark for you. Moving on to criteria 4, deep press. Action plan documentation. Let me just pause here. You are already doing this work. This is, to me, simple copy and paste. If you're already working in your action plan and someone's documenting things along the way, copy and paste, people. You have all of this work done. Do not reinvent the wheel. Let's take a look at what the criteria looks like. So for bronze and silver, you're just going to select one tier 1 TFI item that you've identified for improvement. So a multitude that you can choose from. Just report one. And then what we would like you to do is report those action step items, right? So who, what, where, when, why, who's completing this, by when, let's go, what's the process look like? That is it. You are doing that right now. You probably have it just in the past few months, you have something completed. And we step the game up here for gold. So you'll have one tier 1 TFI item, and then you get to choose either one tier 2 or tier 3 action item or element to report on. And remember, we are looking for dates, who's going to complete it, and what is the item that you're working on. And for our friends over in Platinum, lucky you, you're going to report one TFI feature from each of the 3 tiers, tier 1, 2, and 3. As same as all the other items there, make sure that we have dates, names, and action steps. That's key. When we're reviewing them, that's what we're looking for. Right? So then also we'll double down here. Remember, I mentioned this in the criteria 3. Now for criteria 4 here, those action steps that you're focusing on, this is strictly for gold and platinum. We want you to use this companion guide, integrated companion guide, to kind of use that as a lens for mental health and equity. See how are we using this to guide the action plan that we have set at your site. All right, so here's an example here that we've used in the past. So this, say my site has chosen TFI tier 1, 1.1 that we're talking about teaming. And I want to add, we're looking to add a classified member to our team. So I want to make sure that if I'm talking about tier 1.1, I'm talking about teaming. So there's a good example would be our tier 1 team is going to expand operating procedures by inviting a classified staff representative before certain date. We are going to recruit a parent. Good job. Let's recruit those parents. All right. And with that being said, I am going to hand it off to Luke. Take it away, Luke.
All right, thank you, Raph. Y'all might be wondering why we have so many items there in item 3 and why we're pushing this emphasis on using that integrated TFI companion and expanding your action planning to include focus on social emotional well-being and equity. As was noted in the chat earlier, there will be soon a new TFI, not this school year, but at some point in the future. Maybe we'll have some time to chat about what we know at the end of the webinar. And what we know now is that the new TFI will have an increased emphasis on social emotional skills, on equity and cultural responsiveness, and also classroom. So as we're going here, you're starting to see that we're continuing to push those items forward and ask you to read more and prepare yourself more for that change that is coming. Again, we're still using good old TFI 2.1 for recognition this year. So new TFI has not been released yet and will not be this year as far as we know. So just kind of know that. All right, with all that in mind though, let's talk about criteria 5. Criteria 5, advanced tier intervention data. If you applied for recognition last school year, this item has not changed. We will point out some important features though here. One thing to call out here, the intention of this item is to get schools to reflect on their implementation of advanced tiers, so tier 2 and tier 3. We want schools to monitor how well students are doing in those advanced tiers and then report those data, but only for gold and platinum. So if you're applying for bronze and silver, you will not report data for this item. Within gold, a school may choose either a tier 2 or a tier 3 intervention. After that's identified, you're going to report how progress is monitored for that intervention. You're going to report how many students are enrolled in that intervention or have been enrolled this year. And we're looking for at least 70% of students to be responding to the intervention that you are reporting. So you may do 3 different tier 2 interventions. You probably want to pick the intervention that has that high success rate. Okay, so know that. Again, in gold, you can do tier 2 or tier 3. For platinum, what we're going to ask is that you report a tier 2 and a tier 3 intervention. Just like before, you're going to define how progress is monitored for each of those interventions. You're going to report the number of students that are or have experienced that intervention. And then again, we're looking for interventions where at least 70% of students have responded positively. And we're going to ask that you verify that at least 70% of students in that intervention have, in fact, been successful. One of the common errors we see, particularly when schools report tier 3 interventions, is we'll see schools report tier 3 interventions that are actually not full tier 3 interventions, or may in fact be more like tier 2 or tier 1 interventions. Because of that, we don't want you to make any errors. What we want you to do is we want you to review the Center on PBIS's guidance on tier 3 prior to submitting for a tier 3 intervention. We are not going to verify that you did that. We're not even going to ask if you did that. But again, we just think it's a good thing to do, just so you make sure that you're selecting a tier 3 intervention that is in fact comprehensive. Okay. Here are some examples. First one is a tier 2 example. So this school, They said the intervention that we are implementing in tier 2 is check in, check out. They are monitoring the progress by summarizing the daily progress report points. So those are the points that are produced in check in, check out. This school had 45 students participate in the current school year, and 78% of those students eventually were meeting their goal consistently in check in, check out. Now, tier 3 example, prevent, teach, reinforce. Prevent, teach, reinforce is a specific behavior plan package, kind of a manualized behavior intervention plan model. It's not the only one that is allowed, but it's just one that we like. So that's what they selected. Within PTR, there is an individualized rating form that teachers complete on students. So that's what they are using to monitor progress. They had 4 students participate in that intervention, and 3 of the 4 students were eventually successful with that intervention. Here's some non-examples. Okay, non-examples. We should probably have a big X or something, or a big warning here. All right, so non-example number 1 for tier 2. Reteaching behavior expectations was the intervention they identified. Great thing to do. We should be reteaching our behavior expectations to individual students or groups of students that would benefit from it. However, that by itself is not a full tier 2 intervention. Tier 2 interventions result in additional instruction and additional positive contact for students. So we really need to make sure we got both of those things in place. The TFI provides some guidance on that. They also monitored it only quarterly. That's probably a little bit light. The tier 3 non-example, individual talks with administrators. Again, that may be a good intervention, but it's not a comprehensive tier 3 intervention. And it's also probably not an evidence-based intervention. So that would not meet that criteria. We also sometimes see schools will say that they've done a behavior contract for a tier 3. That by itself is not enough to meet that tier 3 intervention. So we'll point you back to those guiding documents as to the why of that. Now, you might have individual talks or counseling as part of a tier 3 intervention. That would be okay, but it's not comprehensive by itself. All right, criteria 6. This one also has not changed. Report evidence of academic impact. One of the things we know is schools that implement PBIS can see and often see improvements in academic performance, but they have to focus on instruction. PBIS by itself will not do that. That's why we have this. For bronze and silver, all that we're going to ask is that you tell us what tools you're using to measure academic progress. Okay? So it might be something like iReady or DIBELS or SRI or MAP. There's a whole lot out there. It may be a district adopted assessment. Those would all be fine. We just want to know what's being used out there. Now we step it up, of course, when we go to gold. For gold, we want you to do that same first step, identify what formative measure you're using, and we want you to report positive growth for at least one student group with a pre and a post assessment. Again, this is one of these spots where schools sometimes miss. Pre and a post assessment means we're going to have the same data used at 2 different times during the school year. So before the intervention was done and after the intervention was done. Okay? So know that. You're also going to provide a short narrative on how PBIS supported students in making this growth. Okay? For platinum, very similar, but we're going to ask that you demonstrate growth for 2 student groups. Okay, again, pre and a post assessment is required. This has in fact tripped up some schools in the past, so make sure you have that pre and post assessment. Same assessment done multiple times throughout the current school year. Okay, it cannot span multiple school years. It must be from the current school year. All right, here are just some examples of assessments that schools have used in the past. Okay. And also some examples of student groups that schools have looked at. So foster youth, English learners, specific grade levels. We provide a lot of latitude on that. Here is an example. So this school, they said iReady. So that was the assessment that they used. And they were looking at progress for their students learning English. They're emergent bilingual students, and within iReady, it uses a risk score of what tier a student would likely fall into. So at the beginning of the year at this school, 40% of their English learners were falling in that what they call the tier 2 risk range. And then by the next point at the middle of the year, that dropped to 25%. So we see a reduction in risk there. They also identified what they did to support those students. Again, so they use specific strategies, one strategy called SEDI, which is a structured English approach. All right, moving on. Criteria 7, only minor edits here. Criteria 7 is the classroom walkthrough component of recognition. So one of the things we know is that schools that implement PBIS in the classroom see better results than schools that do not. Again, getting ourselves ready for kind of the next iteration of PBIS with that new TFI that will eventually come. There will be an increased focus on classroom. So we're already getting ready for that. Bronze and silver, the ask is that your Acer visits classrooms. Okay? So you're going to visit classrooms and make sure that PBIS is happening, but we do not ask for any data specifically from your Acer. We just want your Acer to go in and spend some time in classrooms and see what's happening from a PBIS perspective to help with action planning. These data are used for action planning. These data are not used for accountability. Just call that out. In gold, we're going to ask that Acer visit at least 10% of classrooms, at least 10% of classrooms. And of those 10% that are visited, we want to see that at least 80% of those have demonstrated at least 3 of the evidence-based classroom practices. Okay? So for platinum, we're asking again, visit at least 10% of classrooms. And what we want to see in all those classrooms visited, at least 4 or more evidence-based classroom practices are evident. All right, but Luke, how am I going to know what these evidence-based classroom practices are? All right, we will get there. We also want you to know that you can do a physical walkthrough, and we do have provisions for virtual classroom visits as well. So if your school is virtual only, right, or it was virtual at the time of assessment, or does not allow for folks to come visit currently, then you can use the virtual option. Okay. Know that. So the specific practices that we're looking come out of the supporting and responding to students' social, emotional, and behavioral needs. This is a new document, an update from a previous similarly titled document. Okay, so this is a document that we use to identify what we like to see in classrooms. It's linked in our PowerPoint. There are specifications for in-person instruction and distance learning. Okay. If you do the narrative, you'll want to just describe how you verified these practices. Did you meet with a team virtually? Did you complete classroom self-assessments? Did you complete a virtual walkthrough, maybe using FaceTime? Or maybe you completed a random interview of students and staff. Those would be options that would be allowed. Here's the tool. I mentioned it earlier. We were going to say, what are these practices that we would like to see? All right, so here's the classroom walkthrough tool. I'm going to point out this top one here. So physical structure is one of the evidence-based classroom practices. Under physical classroom features, there are 5 or 6 different features that are possible. So if you visit a classroom and one of these 6 is happening, then that classroom has met this physical structure. So that would get you to one of the 3 or one of the 4, depending on what level you are. Okay. You'll also notice that some of these items have asterisks next to them. Those items with an asterisk next to them are the new items from our new tool. And again, these focus more on social emotional well-being. And then also we see a greater emphasis on voice and choice, starting to get to a more culturally responsive outcome here. All right, big breath. It's a great tool. We recommend it. It's got hyperlinks in it that will really give you some good details on what we'd like to see in classrooms. How do I get help? So throughout California, in 10 of the 11 successor regions, We have TA centers, technical assistance centers for the California PBIS Coalition. So if you go to our website, pbisca.org, we have folks listed there in terms of who your contacts are. One thing to note, we have 2 TA centers in Region 9, which is nice because there's lots of schools there. Those folks can help you with Acer questions. They can help you find coaches, and then they can provide some guidance too on recognition. All right, common pitfalls. Of course, we see some occasional typos, incomplete answers. We want you to be succinct, but some good information is helpful. And then a big one we see is action plan alignment. So Ralph went over those action plan items. When you're writing that action item, an action item is future tense. So make sure that you're telling us what you are going to do. Okay. Make sure you have the person that's responsible or the person's responsible. Okay. And then of course, make sure that it moves your PBIS work forward. So that's one that catches schools. So be on the lookout for that one. All right, we will have an updated frequently asked questions document. So we'll get that updated and posted at our website. So look for that. And now I'm going to pause here and I'm going to open it up to Ginny Joseph, and she's going to come and fill us in on any questions that came up in the chat that might need additional elaboration and provide a little bit more context there.
Okay, so 4 more questions just came in. So if somebody else could take those, that'd be great. I think one of the most frequent questions was around Acer. If you're not sure if you took it in the past and qualified, there will be an updated list. And so every week we'll run that. There will be an updated list on our website. Acer is not associated with the Center on PBIS. It is not associated with PBIS apps or PBIS assessment. You won't find it in there. It's specific to California PBIS. So it's only through California PBIS, not through the center. Let's see. There were a lot of questions around behavior plans and tier 3 TFI, and I did the best I could to answer them. But if you still have questions, I would highly recommend reaching out to your region lead on California PBIS for clarification. Let's see. I know some other folks were helping answer when we got kind of inundated here. So if anybody else is seeing some patterns. The biggest one was around Acer and behavior plans. And if your question's real specific, it might be better to ask your region lead.
And then Ginny, I would also point out that the last page of the TFI is the support plan worksheet for tier 3. So that's a resource that we've been directing folks to.
Thank you. And then just to reiterate, because there was a question specific to criteria 4 did change with that integrated companion guide. So you must report mental health or equity add to your action plan for tier 1 TFI items. So make sure you're addressing that in your response. There was a question on Aries Analytics that I don't think has a blanket answer using Aries Analytics in lieu of Swiss. So please reach out to your region lead. I'll help you with that. Anything else from the team?
Ginny, I saw there was a question on TFI 3.0 and just so folks know, and I know Ginny, you typed this, but we will not make any changes to recognition this year, even if that were to come out mid-year. We don't anticipate it will. And we think that it's likely that recognition may not even change for next year. It just kind of depends on when, in fact, TFI 3.0 comes out, but we'll make sure to get communication out real early on that. So just know that At the very earliest, it would be next year, and it's entirely possible that the next year we'll still be using TFI 2.1 for recognition, depending on when things come out.
I guess we could just answer the questions that are in there. There's a question, will sites this year be awarded the level for which they qualify or strictly the level they apply for? This is a common question. It's actually in the FAQs. If you apply for a certain level and your answer or response does not meet that criteria, you won't necessarily get bumped down. You still have to meet the criteria of the level to get the award. Does the Acer do the walkthrough by themselves or with a group? I think that's up to the school site if you need to be escorted, or if you can do that on your own. It's certainly something you can do on your own.
Jeannie, there was a question around which criteria have been updated. So I'll just jump in. So there's a slight change for criteria 2 for gold and for platinum. It has to do with your percentage of students that had either 0 or 1 major office discipline referrals. So take a look at that. Criteria 3, we've added some additional requirements. Criteria 4 is now linked to criteria 3 for gold and platinum. And then the criteria 7 had the minor changes with the supporting documentation, but generally has not changed much.
There is a question about if I'm an Acer, do I need to do that before completing the application? And I just wanted to clarify, the Acer is an external reviewer, and typically the Acer does not fill out the application. It's usually a site level person that's filling out the application for the school site to get the award. The Acer just simply helps with some outside pieces. There's a question about you've completed the certification and you have received the email, but your name is not on the list. I'm going to write down your name. My question would be, how recent did you complete the certification? Because we did recently update the list, I think within a week.
And also check your spam folder. Sometimes it might get kicked. Depends on your filter. It might get kicked down there.
I think she's saying she's not on the list on the website. Or he, Danae.
We would also just recommend to keep that email. I don't think we've run into any issues once it's all sorted in terms of time, but if for some reason there was an issue and you had the email verifying, we would of course look at that. All right, so as we're kind of thinking about these last questions here, just want to call out that the California PBIS conference will be October 11th through 13th in downtown Sacramento. We hope to see you there. We will, of course, post recognition there as well. Any other outstanding questions, team, before we wrap up here that we need to answer? All right. I think we're good then. All right, y'all, we will get the recording processed and get it up on the website as fast as we can. We'll make sure that the links or that the slides are also available at our website. Go check out our website. You can check out the new rebrand there. It should be up right now. And we will look forward to seeing your applications, and we'll look forward to seeing you in person at the California PBIS conference. With that, thank you so much.